Story Merchant Books presents Fossil River by Jock Miller. Narrated by Luke Noordyk.
Chapter 1. Butch Gieselson's alarm sounded at 4:30 a.m. AKST, a 2-hour time difference from his mountain time in Wyoming. But he was already awake, his chartered float plane at ready. Gieselson had fantasized about this day for months. He studied the Orvis catalog, selected the perfect gear, and read whatever he could get his hands on about fishing gold medal rivers with the fever of a kid obsessed with electronic games. 2 summers ago, he traveled to the Rio Grande River in Tierra del Fuego to fish for large, sea-run brown trout at the southern tip of Argentina. Last summer, he traveled to the Kenai River for big Russian rainbow trout, steelhead, Dolly Varden, and Chinook salmon. Now he was in quest of trophy native rainbows and oversized steelhead in the rarely fished waters of Alaska's legendary Fossil River. It promised to be the most challenging of them all. In fact, he wasn't even sure he could find the fossil after poring over maps, satellite GPS pictures, and topographical charts. The thin blue river line in the Noordyk National Preserve had no river name listed, but through the process of elimination, he assumed it had to be the fossil. Gieselson had ventured into the wilderness many times before, but this time would be different, he told himself. When fishing the other famous rivers of the world, he had fishing guides. But after countless calls to outfitters and guide services in the Noordyk Preserve region, he found nobody willing to take him. 2 of the 5 guides he'd contacted had never even heard of the Fossil River. Bottom line, there would be no guide. Gieselson's charter plane would fly east up the Noordyk River in a de Havilland Beaver DHC-2. He knew the plane well, no pontoons this time. He'd be dropped off between the Mayu-Merrick Mountains and the Brooks Mountain Range, 136 miles upriver. Hopefully, there would be an ATV waiting for him when he arrived. He'd paid the rental fee the day before his arrival, and a riverboat was to make the ATV deposit on the south bank of the Noordyk River. The fossil cut through the wilderness that was so remote and inaccessible that tales of fishing the river were passed along as legend by the old-timers who haunted the solitary fisherman's bar, the Master Baiter, on the outskirts of the small town of Noordyk, population 510. The tales mesmerized Gieselson. Not one of the fishermen he had met the night before had actually ever fished the fossil himself. Their stories were all rumor and hearsay, but to Gieselson they were utterly irresistible. He'd stayed up past midnight the night before, reviewing old maps and double-checking his equipment. A 5-weight impregnated bamboo fly rod, which had been a gift from his father on his 16th birthday. 4- and 5-weight tippets, a wicker creel with that wonderful smell that brought back memories of a great day fishing. A fly vest including dry and wet flies of all sizes, silicone dry fly dressing, a snap-free net attached to the back of his vest, a hunting knife, neoprene waders, a new Apple iPhone that he guessed might not have signal deep into the wilderness, a satellite GPS, and a Smith & Wesson SW-1911DK his father gave him on his 21st birthday. It held one 10-round clip, which he zipped into the inside pocket of his vest with another box of shells. "Just in case," he said, shrugging, knowing the Noordyk Park's 6.5 million acres contained the largest grizzly population in North America. It was first light when Gieselson's small plane touched down on the Noordyk. A flock of mergansers took off from the river at the sound of the engine roar. The pilot negotiated a 2-wheel landing on a thin strip of shoreline not more than 15 feet wide, confirming the agility of the de Havilland and its Pratt & Whitney engine. Gieselson smiled with pleasure when he saw the ATV not 30 yards from the planned drop. "Great job," Gieselson chortled appreciatively. "Great plane," the pilot grunted, his raspy voice confirming he could have used another 2 hours of sleep and 2 more cups of joe. "Great pilot." "Up here you have to be," the pilot responded with a nod. "But thanks." The fisherman looked at his watch. "I'll be here at 9 o'clock sharp tonight. Sun doesn't set until close to midnight, so I've got extra time to fish. Not a bad deal for a fly fisherman," Gieselson said. The pilot exhaled. "You be careful in there. You got a gun?" "Yes." "Good luck," the pilot intoned. The comment bothered Gieselson. Something about it sounded a little more ominous than simply saying good luck in fishing. He decided to let it go and hopped out of the plane. Then he gathered his equipment and watched the pilot throttle up the engine into a roar of power. The small plane lifted off the thin strip of shoreline, circled once, then vanished into the western horizon. The air was cool, and the thought of large trout and steelhead gripped Giselson's mind. He loaded up the ATV, the engine came alive, and the GPS he held in his hand marked his exact spot. He took in a long breath of crisp mountain air and gunned the ATV up and over the South Bank ledge in a high arc. Life was great, he told himself. He cut a diagonal path toward the Mayumeric mountain range. On the map, there was no indication of any road or path beyond the river. But the rumors he'd heard mentioned a stretch of the southeast fork of the Fossil that was hidden somewhere between 4 mountains south of the Noordyk River. From the maps and history of the vast mountain range, he knew there were 9 active glaciers, 3 active volcanoes of the 30 in Alaska, and more than 200 lakes within the Noordyk Park, sprawling 400 majestic miles across Alaska east to west. He knew that the Noordyk River's origin began far to the east, high up in the mountains, winding through the range until it spilled into the Chinook Sea. He pressed on in his ATV. It was smooth riding at first, then tougher. And as he threaded his way between mountain ridges, it became almost impassable. By 8:20 a.m., Giselson had run up into a rock ravine so steep that he was forced to stop. He took a deep, frustrating breath of morning air and surveyed the sprawling mountain peaks up ahead. One peak spewed a cloud of billowing smoke, and the fisherman realized he'd never before been this close to a live volcano. In the distance, he saw 2 doll sheep butting heads. He had no choice. He would have to hike toward the river with hope of intersecting it. He marked the ATV on his GPS, shouldered his equipment, and began a slow, arduous climb. Giselson walked for more than an hour. At first, he moved through the mountain vegetation with little resistance. But soon the mix of thick elders, Douglas fir, ponderosa pine, and native mountain ash thickened and slowed his progress. The chokecherry that grew along the new path he was now blazing became almost impassable. A machete would have been helpful, he thought, but carrying one would have been cumbersome. Then, in the distance, Giselson saw a wall of Fish and Wildlife Agency posters, each with a different message. No trespassing. Danger ahead. No access. Giselson had trespassed many times on private property to reach gold medal fishing streams, so he wasn't intimidated. But how in the hell did the park rangers even find this place? And why such a strong warning? Only one sign bothered him. A skull and crossbones with the message that if he trespassed, he was taking his life into his own hands, and the Noordyk National Park would not be held responsible. He walked around the sign and pressed forward.
That was a Story Merchant Books presentation of Fossil River by Jock Miller. Thanks for listening.